Good day everyone, we are the group 5. Our topic is the whole module 5 and it consists of 5 different lessons. And we reporters should be able to discuss the following. First, define environmental protection, global warming, and climate change. Second, identify the effects of global warming. Third, identify and generalize the principles of environment. And lastly, develop an action plan on how to address environmental protection, global warming, and climate change.
Lesson 1: Global Warming and Climate Change. What is global warming? It is the long-term heating of Earth's climate since pre-industrial period due to human activities, primarily fossil fuel burning, which increase heat trapping in Earth's atmosphere. Effects of global warming: increase in average temperature and temperature extremes. One of the most immediate effects of global warming is the increase in temperature around the world. The average global temperature was increased by about 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit, according to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administrator. Extreme weather events. Scientists project that extreme weather events such as heat waves, droughts, Arctic blizzards, hurricane, and rainstorm will continue to occur more often with greater intensity due to global warming. So the heat waves, droughts, blizzard, hurricane, and rainstorm will get stronger due to global warming. Changes in seasonal temperature. The winter, spring, summer, and fall temperature of those seasons will change. So this is the typhoon, drought, and hurricane. Ice melt. North America, Europe, and Asia have all trend toward less snow cover between 1960 and 2015. So, less cover na yung bumaba yung snow nila. According to the National Snow and Ice Data Center, there is now 10% less permafrost or frozen ground in the northern hemisphere than there was in 1900s. So, from 1900s daw, 10% na nabawas sa frozen ground sa northern hemisphere. So, ayan po yung ice melting, sea levels, and ocean acidification. Melted ice increases the volume of water, so cause of this is the sea level increases. Warmer temperature also result in expansion of water mass, which causes sea levels to rise, threatening the low highlands and coastal cities. Sea level rises accelerated 0.12 inch per year. So, ayan po yung lowlands is binabaha na dahil sa pag-increase ng water mass. The ocean have absorbed most of extra heat and carbon dioxide so far more than air. So, the ocean absorbed more carbon dioxide than air that causes acidic ocean. Warming waters are bleaching coral reefs and driving stronger storm. Rising ocean acidity threatens shellfishes. So dahil dyan sa nangyaring acidification, sisira yung coral reefs, lumalakas yung storm, yung shellfish na sisira. So maaaring maapektuhan yung marine food chain. Ayan po, ocean acidification. Negative effect on human health and wellness. This is the negative effect of global warming to us. Allergies, asthma, and infectious disease outbreaks will become more common due to increased growth of pollen-producing ragweed, higher level of air pollution, and the spread of conditions favorable to pathogens and mosquitoes. So, kakaroon ng mga illness, ganun. May mga sakit. Climate change. Climate change is a long-term change in the average weather pattern that have come to define Earth's local, regional, and global climates. So, the change of climate around the world. Climate change is one of the most complex issues facing us today. It includes many dimensions: science, economics, so marami naapektuhan. Science, economics, society, politics, and moral and ethical questions. And is a global farming problem felt on large scales that will be around for decades and centuries to come. So, nararamdaman natin ngayong climate change is mangyayari at mangyayari pa sa mga darating na panahon. Responding to climate change involves a three-point approach. Yan po yung three-point approach. Adaptation, mitigation, and anticipation. What is adaptation? Mag-a-adapt tayo sa nangyayari. Making changes in how we run our communities, yes, business, homes, and national to reduce the risk to people and nature from the impact of climate change. So, kailangan nating pagawin yung pagtakbo ng communities para maiwasan yung sea levels, more frequent and intense storms, flooding, droughts, and heat waves. So, i-adapt natin yun sa buhay natin. It also encompasses making the most of any potential beneficial opportunities associated with the climate change. So, think tayo sa positive way sa climate change. For example, longer growing seasons or increased yields in some regions. Diba? Positive tingnan natin. Mitigation. Making climate change less severe by reducing emission of greenhouse gases, most commonly referring carbon dioxide, which comes from a variety of sources, but most importantly from burning fuels. So, babawas-bawasan na natin yan. Para mabawasan yung paglala. Anticipation is a critical component for building resilience. By being proactive, anticipation focuses more on foresight, draw from predictive capabilities, knowledge, experience, and skills, and implying preparation for possible contingencies and consideration of long-term alternatives. So, more on foresight to yung pag-predict sa mangyayari sa future. So, yung parang pag-prepare lang natin sa future. We must be anticipated.
Hello everyone. What we are going to talk about here in lesson 2 is the 7 principles of environment and environmental laws. Alright, so before we proceed, let us know first what is the meaning of the word environment. So according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, environment is the circumstances, objects, or conditions by which one is surrounded, or the complex of physical, chemical, and biotic factors such as climate, soil, and living things that act upon an organism or an ecological community and ultimately determine its form and survival. So, sinasabi na ang environment daw ay yung surroundings or yung condition kung saan nakatira ang mga tao, hayop, halaman, at iba pang mga living things. O sa simpleng salita ay yung lugar na ginagalawan nating lahat. So next, ano naman yung ecology? So ecology is the scientific study of the processes influencing the distribution and abundance of organisms, the interaction among organisms and the interactions between organisms, and the transformation and flux of energy and matter. So, sinasabi naman dito na yung ecology ay interaction o ang relation ng isang organism sa iba pang organism doon sa mismong environment na ginagalawan nila. So, anong pinagkaiba nilang dalawa? Environment is everything that surrounds us, samantalang ang ecology ay kung paano gumagana ang mga bagay-bagay sa ating environment. Alright, so who is Barry Commoner? Barry Commoner is an American cellular biologist, college professor, and also a politician. So in his book in 1971 entitled The Closing Circle, he gives a clear and understandable example of what ecology really means, while being one of the first to sound the alarm on the impending environmental crisis. So isa raw siya sa mga taong unang nagbigay ng information regarding sa mga pwede nating kahinatnan pag hindi natin pinahalagaan ng ecology. So, one of the famous environmentalists that we have today is, maybe you have heard of her. Her name is Greta Thunberg. So, masyado siyang controversial nowadays. So, in this book, he lay out 4 basic and inescapable law of ecology. So, first, everything is connected to everything else. So, meaning humans and other species are connected, or they are dependent on a number of other species. Second, everything must go somewhere. No matter what you do and no matter what you use, it has to go somewhere. So, for example, kunwari, pag nagsunog ka ng kahoy, so, hindi yun nawawala. Yung smoke nun, umaakyat sa, or sumasama sa air, and then aakyat, pagbaba nun, magiging abon na yun, tapos babalik sa lupa. So, hindi nawawala yun. We were going to expound that later. Nature knows best, as the third one, and then the fourth one would be there is no such thing as free lunch. So, sinasabi dyan na lahat ng ginagawa mo ay may reason. So, it basically means that you have to do something in order to get something in return. Alright, so sino naman si Miss Angelina P. Galang? So, Miss Angelina P. Galang is also one of Filipino environmentalists. In her book, 7 Lenses or Environmental Principles as if Adults Mattered, he expounded commoner psychological principles. She enumerated 7 core messages that explains and emphasize why our ecology and our environment matter. So, ayun nga, siya yung nag-expound palalo ng mga idea ni Mr. Barry Commoner regarding the importance or the significance of our ecology. So, ano-ano yung mga yon? Alright, so unang-una na dyan ay nature knows best. Ang kalikasan ang mas nakakaalam. So, nature manifests certain processes that enable it to maintain balance and remain in a state of equilibrium. So, when we say state of equilibrium, ibig sabihin lang nun na lahat ng element in nature ay balanced at nagpa-function ng maayos. Paano nga ba natin nasasabi na ang kalikasan ang mas nakakaalam sa mga bagay-bagay sa ating mundo? So, una na dyan ay yung process ng photosynthesis. Yun yung energy coming from the sun itself that enables light or the light coming from the sun to be converted into sugar for the plants. Tapos, ito yung kinakain o yung nagiging source ng mga halaman para mas lumago. Then after that, kakainin naman natin ang mga edible plants kung saan doon naman tayo kumukuha ng starch. Starch is equals to carbohydrates, carbohydrates equals to energy. Pangalawa, yung mga food chains at food webs na nag-aalaw na mag-transfer ng energy from the producers sa mga consumers, which is yung mga tao at hayop, para mag-acquire ng nutrition. Also, yung relationship between predators and prey ay ang nagbabalansa ng population ng mga organisms. Kapag itong balanse na ito ay nawala, malaki ang negative impact ang pwedeng mangyari, tulad ng illegal logging at deforestation. Nagsasanhi ito ng baha at may epekto rin ito sa klima. Alright, so yung pangalawa naman, all forms of life are equally important. Ang lahat ng buhay ay mahalaga. So, all organisms have a role in the ecosystem. All living organisms were created for a purpose and relation to humans, other species on Earth, and global ecosystem in general. So, sinasabi dito na lahat daw ng organismo ay mahalaga or may significance, may kanya-kanyang function sa isang specific na ecological environment. All of them contributes to the stability of it. So, even yung mga bacteria, insects, snakes, and rats, meron pa din silang ecological function kahit nakikita natin sila as pests. So, different organisms means there is more biodiversity. This would help attain environment aesthetics and more genetic material needed for the future agricultural or medical discoveries. So, paano ba natin ma-maintain ng ecological balance? Of course, unang-una na dyan is yung conservation ng genes, species, and ecosystems. Pangalawa, protection of both terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem. Pangatlo, ensuring that the natural state of these habitats continue to exist in those designated areas. And lastly, community-based approaches in conservation maximize citizens' participation in protected areas. Alright, so yung pangatlo naman, sabi dito, everything is connected to everything else. Ang lahat ng bagay ay magkakaugnay. So, it reflects the existence of the elaborate network of interconnections in the ecosphere. Among different living organisms and between populations, species, and individual organisms and their psychochemical surroundings. So, natakan lang natin kanina na lahat ng mga nabubuhay ay may kanya-kanyang function at impact sa ecosystem na ginagalawan nila. Paano ba natin nasabi na lahat ng bagay ay magkakaugnay? So, sinasabi sa mga pag-aaral na yung mga living component daw ay isang ecosystem ay may epekto at naapektuhan ng mga abiotic compounds. Ano ba yung mga abiotic compounds? Ito yung air, temperature, land. So, some relationships create dependency with each other that they have to coexist para mabuhay. So, human interaction with nature oftentimes alters the ecosystem. Yung mga basura na tinatapon natin, nagkakos yan ng land pollution at water pollution. Dahil dyan, madaming mga aquatic animals ang namamatay. Sa lupa naman, yung mga bulating nagpapataba ng lupa ay namamatay din dahil sa mga plastic na hindi nabubulok. Deforestation causes soil erosion and yung land or yung soil erosion na iyon ay napupunta sa mga bodies of water kung saan natatakpan yung mga natural coral reefs. Even yung usok galing sa mga pabrika at kotse ay nagkakos ng lung problems sa mga tao. So, ito yung tinatawag na cause and effect chain. Kahit yung iba hindi natin nakikita o naobserbahan, ay nangyayari pa rin. Alright, so number 4. Everything changes. Ang lahat ay nagbabago. So, changes in the biophysical world occur naturally. As they say, there is nothing more permanent in this world than change. So, ano na ba yung example niyan sa kalikasan? So, unang halimbawa ay yung metamorphosis ng caterpillars papunta sa pagiging butterfly. Then, yung increase sa vegetation sa earth. So, mas dumadami yung mga halaman or yung mga puno So, pag nag-increase yung vegetation, nag-increase din yung amount ng oxygen na meron yung Earth. Yung papalit-palit na seasons kada taon or buwan-buwan, kung saan nagko-contribute naman to sa diversity ng flower, fruits, at vegetables. So, sa mga changes naman na dulot ng calamity or catastrophe tulad ng bagyo, minsan nakakasira ng mga gubat at mga mangroves yung mga baha na sanhi ng bagyo. And then, sa volcanic eruption naman, so tinatabunan ng mga bato o yung mga lava galing sa eruption, yung lupa, tapos yung mga ilog rin, nagsasubmerge, namamatay yung mga isda, namamatay yung ilog. Dito natin makikita yung sinasabi na ang lahat ay nagbabago sa kalikasan. Alright, so number 5, everything must go somewhere. Ang lahat ng bagay ay may patutunguhan. So according to science, sa law of conservation, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So because of that, the amount of the energy that we have since the beginning of time, since the Big Bang, is the same energy that we have today. Applied to ecology, the law emphasizes that in nature, there is no such thing as waste. In every natural system, what is excreted by one organism as waste is taken up by another as food. So, paano ba natin yan na-obserbahan in nature? So, una-una na dyan is yung cycle of oxygen. So, plants excretes oxygen, human takes up oxygen, and then as we exhale carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide, kinukuha naman yan ng mga plants. And the cycle goes on and on and on. So, wala talagang nasasayang. Lahat may pinatutunguhan. Alright, so another example is animal waste. So, yung mga animal waste na yan, nagiging fertilizer yan or nagiging pataba sa lupa. So, there is a persistent effort to answer the question, where does it go? It can yield a surprising amount of valuable information about our ecosystem. So consider, for example, the fate of a household item which contains mercury, a substance with serious environmental effects that have just recently surfaced. So, yun daw yung mga battery na mayroong mercury na substance. So, imagine na yung battery na yun, tapos mo nang gamitin, na-exhaust mo na siya, itatapon mo na siya. So, itong mga battery na to, kinokollect to, then nilalagay sa incinerator. Then sa incinerator, hini-heat up nila yun, battery. So, nangyayari, nagkakaroon ng mercury vapor. Tapos itong mercury vapor na to, sumasama siya sa hangin at bumabalik siya sa lupa or sa tubig by means of rain or snow. So, once na bumalik siya sa tubig, since itong mercury vapor na to, soluble siya, pwede siyang makain ng mga isda. So, pag nakain siya ng mga isda, yung mercury vapor na yun or yung mercury substance na yun, mag-stay lang yun sa skin ng isda or sa organs ng isda. Then, makakain yun ng tao at pwede ring mag-reside yung mercury na yun sa organs ng taong nakakain. So, sobrang toxic ng mercury substance sa environment at sa mga tao. So, this is an effective way to trace out an ecological path. It is also an excellent way to counteract the prevalent notion that something which regarded as useless simply goes away, when in fact, nothing really goes away. So, yun, sana matandaan natin yun and let us be mindful sa mga tinatapon nating mga waste from our households. Okay, so number 6, Ours is a finite earth. Ang kalikasan ay may hangganan. Everything that we need is provided by nature in abundance: food, water, energy, minerals, and air. However, some resources that we depend upon nowadays are extracted excessively but are so slow to replace. So, tulad halimbawa ng mga fossil fuels. So, yung mga fossil fuels, yun yung pinagkukuhanan ng mga malalaking bansa ng langis. So, sa sobrang excessive na pagkuha natin ng mga fossil fuels na to, darating yung panahon, maybe in 100 years or years from now, na mauubos yung mga fossil fuels na to at mahirapan tayo makakuha ng panibagong renewable energy. Pangalawa is yung water and wood. So, yeah, madali silang makita. It's like so abundant. Parang ang dami, parang hindi mauubos. Pero dahil sa lumalalang deforestation at water pollution, darating yung time na magiging inaccessible din sila. So alam naman nating lahat na loss of resources will result to food scarcity. So pag sinabing scarcity, kakulangan. So kakulangan sa pagkain. So kakulangan sa pagkain, that would also mean sobrang kagutom, kahirapan, or poverty. Kaya, yeah. So also, another harmful is yung mga oil spills from accidents. Also, war destroy bays and rivers. Also, yung mga waterways that have become cesspool or domestic waste cannot contain fishes and shells, or if they do, might transmit toxins and harmful bacteria to consumers. Marami ng mga solusyon na hinain para masolusyonan tong nalalapit na pwedeng mawalan tayo or maging inaccessible tong mga resources na to para sa mga tao. So, isa na dyan yung reduction of consumption, increase use of renewable energy, emissions trading, and pollution control. Alright, so 7. Last but not least, nature is beautiful and we are stewards of God's creation. Ang kalikasan ay maganda at tayo ang tagapangasiwa ng lahat ng nilikha ng Diyos. Creation presupposes the existence of a creator. The beautiful nature around us, perfect by itself, has deteriorated due to the negative impacts of human use. So, dito sinasabi sa principle na to na may kinalaman daw yung relationship natin sa creator towards sa paano natin inaalagaan or dapat alagaan ang environment natin. So theologians explain that there are different levels of this relationship. So una is yung the relationship is determined by dominion of humans over creation. So, kung matatandaan nyo or maaalala nyo, sinabi sa Genesis or yung first book sa Bible na have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air. So, dahil doon, parang sinasabi na tayo yung owner ng kalikasan, which is hindi tama. So, dapat inaalagaan natin yung kalikasan. Hindi tayo yung pinakamataas, hindi tayo yung may-ari ng kalikasan. Second, the second level is one of stewardship, that of the caretaker where humans are not owners, but guardians of the integrity of nature. So, yun nga. So, sabi doon sa pangalawang level, is yung tayo ay tagapangasiwa or tayo yung tagapag-alaga. Hindi tayo owner ng nilikha ng Diyos. Pangatlo naman is yung this level promotes a kinship relationship postulated by Saint Francis de Assisi in the famous verse Brother Sun, Sister Moon, where humans are no higher than the birds and fishes of the sea. So, katulad nga na sinabi ko kanina, we are not superior than the other living things. Tapos yung pang-apat, this is one of the sacrament where the nature becomes a testimony of God's love. Fifth is a covenant relationship where protection of the earth is a life mission manifested in the things that we do and say. So, yun nga. So, ayun, ano ba yung pinaka-bottom point ng mga principles na to? Yung 7 points na nilaid out ni Miss Angelina P. Galang. So, based on these tenets, appreciating ecology ultimately means recognizing that humankind is but a small piece of a larger, more intricate picture. So, we are just part of the puzzle. We are not the puzzle. So, everything we do sa nature, babalik sa atin yan. Pag maganda, ang ginawa natin sa nature, maganda ang balik sa atin. Pero pag inabuse natin sa nature, maraming pwedeng mangyari. Yung advancement natin na ginawa natin for almost thousands of years, pwedeng mawala lang sa isang saglit dahil sa hindi natin inalagaan yung nature, yung environment kung saan tayo nabubuhay. So, people may have achieved so much in social structures, knowledge, and technology throughout generations, yet the planet still holds much more power, mightily creative and destructive at the same time. So, by the recognition and acceptance of these principles alone, people can establish a genuine and impassioned foundation for advocacy and action towards the cause of environmental conservation and sustainability. So, sa ikaw bilang tao, kahit isa ka lang, basta naniniwala ka sa isang magandang cause, hindi malabo na pwede pa natin masave ang nature. Alright, so let us proceed to the next one. Important environmental laws. So, ito yung mga pinatupad ng government para mas lalong mapangalagaan yung environment lalo na sa Pilipinas or sa bansa natin. So first one would be the Republic Act 9003, Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. So in partnership with stakeholders, the law aims to adopt a systematic, comprehensive, and ecological solid waste management program that shall ensure the protection of public health and environment. So, yun nga. So, this law, ito yung law for proper segregation, collection of storage, and nga, treatment and disposal of solid waste through the formulation and adaptation of best eco-waste products. So dito, mas napagtuunan pansin yung pag-recycle, tamang pag-dispose ng mga basura. Next. The RA or Republic Act 9275. Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004. So it speaks for itself. The law aims to protect the country's water bodies from pollution from land-based sources such as industries and commercial establishments, agriculture, and community household activities. So alam naman natin na yung mga na malaki ang problema ng Pilipinas sa pollution because of the yung mga pabrika, mga communities or households waste na hindi nagkakaroon ng tamang proper disposal. So, this act aims to protect those bodies of waters. Next one, RA 6969, Toxic Substances, Hazardous and Nuclear Waste Control Act of 1990. So this law aims to protect the country's water bodies from pollution from land-based sources, such as industries and commercial establishments, agriculture, and community household activities. So yeah, parang katulad lang din ng nauna, it aims to protect um, the bodies of water like rivers, ocean, from pollution. Nagdala ng mga pabrika. So, yung mga pollution na dala nila is yung mga toxic substances na sobrang hazardous o sobrang nakakasira ng kalikasan, um, nakaka, nak- nakakamatay ng mga isda, yung mga nuclear waste. Next. Alright, so Republic Act 8435, Agriculture and Fisheries and Modernization Act of 1997. So it establishes that the Department of Agriculture, together with other appropriate agencies, should take into account climate change, weather disturbances, and annual productivity cycles, and forecasting and formulating appropriate agricultural fisheries programs. So, yun. So this act is about the parang nag-i-improve or pag-i-improve sa agricultural and fisheries fisheries economy ng Pilipinas. So alam naman natin ang Pilipinas is like an agricultural country. We are surrounded by we have lands kung saan pwede tayo magtanim ng mga palay, mga saging, mga mais. And then napapalibutan din tayo ng dagat kung saan pwede tayo kumuha ng sobrang yaman ng mga isda. Sobrang daming mga isda. So, itong act na to, nagbibigay ito ng mga programa or nagbibigay daan sa mga programa, nagbibigay ng budget sa modernization ng agricultural economy and fisheries economy ng Pilipinas. Alright, so next is the Republic Act 8749 or the Clean Air Act of 1999. So this moves for an effective air quality management program that will mitigate the worsening problem of air pollution in the country. So, yun nga. Again, the law speaks for itself, Clean Air Act. So, nagbigay sila ng mga legislation kung saan mapapanatili ang kalinisan ng hangin. So, yung kunwari pagbabawas sa mga kotse or bibigay daan sa mga bago or sa mga modern jeepneys na hindi nagre-require ng gasolina. Next. Republic Act 9512 or the National Environmental Awareness and Education Act of 2008. So this promotes national awareness on the role of natural resources and economic growth and the importance of environmental conservation and ecological balance towards sustained national development. So ayun nga, alam naman natin na kaaglipat or kaagiba ng technology or advancement in technology is yung sacrifices naman natin sa environment natin. So parang related sila sa isa't isa. So, ayun, this act naman, nagbibigay ito ng kaalaman or mga programa regarding kung paano natin mako-conserve yung ecology or yung environment, paano tayo magkakaroon ng na in spite of the technological advancement, paano natin masusustain yung mga resources natin towards the population in the growing years or in the coming years. Next, Republic Act 9513 or the Renewable Energy Act of 2008. So it promotes the development, utilization, and commercialization of renewable energy resources. So yun nga, nagbibigay rin to ng nagbibigay daan sa paghahanap ng mga renewable energy resources tulad ng paggamit ng tubig or yung hydro energy, geothermal energy, like maliban sa oil. Yan. So that's the end of lesson 2. Thank you so much.
Module 5, Lesson 3, Forest Protection, Conservation and Development. Forests are indispensable to society. Their various ecosystems are vital to human survival and stability of cultures, supporting and regulating environmental processes, including the maintenance and regeneration of biodiversity, soil formation and nutrient cycle, crop pollination, infiltration of water, and enhancement of microclimate. Forests are indispensable. From the word itself, indispensable. Isa sa mga main source ng society ang forest. Since dito tayo umaasa sa pang-araw-araw at para makasurvive. Kasi may iba't ibang essential at utmost benefits ang forest sa nature at the same time society din. Nevertheless, neglectful society have caused the destruction and degradation of forests worldwide. In the Philippines, the forest cover has declined continuously from the estimated. Yan. Dahil sa pagiging abusado ng mga tao sa kagubatan, mabilis ang pagbabago ng epekto nito. Even in the Philippines ay apektado din in the past histories. At ito nakatalang example timeline. 27.5 billion hectares at the time of Spanish colonization 5 centuries ago. 20.9 million hectares towards the end of Spanish colonization in late 1800s. 7.8 million hectares toward the end of American colonization 1940s. Up to the modern era, estimates of 10.9 million hectares in 1970. 6.7 million hectares in 1990. The most recent figure of 7.1 million hectares in 2003 seems to indicate that the decline has been arrested and that forest cover has even increased overall. National Programs for Conservation and the Management of Forest Genetic Resources through improvement and genetic resources conservation activities in the Philippines take place under national reforestation programs but are not clearly defined. Even na naging abusado mga colonizers sa forest ng Philippines, napakalagaan ng mga Pilipino sa kanilang iba't ibang organizations and make different programs about preserving the forest. Pero sa mga program na yun, may lack of requirements pa rin sa mga plans nila. Breeding of forestry has historically been underemphasized, owing to a preference for natural regeneration methods such as trees for pines and selective logging for dipterocarps. Yung dipterocarps, hardwood tropical tree na meron lang sa Southern Asia. Kahit na hindi sufficient ang mga plano ng bawat programs, proceed pa rin sila. Kaya marami ang nangaangkin kung anong gusto nilang options of methods. Ito tulad ng 2 examples in the way preserves and natural regeneration of forest. Changes in environmental and socio-economic conditions, however, have promoted more intensive plantation approaches that requires specific tree improvement and genetic resources conservation efforts. Fortunately, may gaps pa rin sa mga activities na sinagawa ng mga tao para sa benefits of forest natural regeneration despite of changes sa environmental and socio-economic conditions. In situ conservation. As early as 1930, legislation was passed to prevent logging of 4 leguminous timber tree species, namely Supa, Akle, Tindalo, and Ipil, as well as a non-legume Vitex parviflora. Harvesting of indigenous legume Nara and of any dictocrop species from virgin forest for log exports have also been regulated. Ang different 4 types ng tree ng leguminous and legume na itigil lang deforestation sa mga ganitong uri ng puno. And normally, ang type ng legume tree na Nara at ibang dipterocarp species ng tree sa mga kagubatan more or less naging balanse at proper ang deforestation process. The plant genetic resources of a country are assets that should be protected by clear national policies on their conservation and use. The sustainable use of each production, forest, or management unit in the Philippines varies according to size, shape, species, composition, concentration of endemic species, and so on. The conservation value of any given area is reflected in its management objectives and is the quality of management, because the conservation of forest genetic resources is fundamental to the sustainable and productive management of forest ecosystem. In situ conservation effort should be reinforced. So lahat ng process of activities about deforestation ay under ng national policies and must be efficient ang paggagamitan nito. Then depends sa qualifications or specifications of each production or management unit dito sa Pilipinas ay dapat accurate and appropriate ang paglalaanan nito para masustain, palakasin at ma-preserve ang mga utmost needs ng societies at ng natural forest simultaneously. Integrated Protected Area System. The main strategy for protecting and conserving biodiversity in the Philippines is the establishment of an integrated protected area system. Ang main tactic source system ng Philippines para ma-maintain a balance ng ecosystem, habitat types, and any other subjects that involves on the natural environment ay ang Integrated Protected Area System. The IPAS was set up to protect and preserve a representative sample of all ecosystem and habitat types in the country, as well as their plant and animal species. Executive Order 192 created the Parks and Wildlife Bureau to consolidate government efforts and conserve biological diversity in the protected area system. Ang government ay mayroong kooperasyon na tagkaisa para pangalagaan at protektahan ang environmental area system sa mga parks. Wildfire Bureau ay under ng Executive Order 192. In June 1992, Republic Act No. 7586, otherwise known as the National Integrated Protected Area System Law, was passed. The law, which is being implemented by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, has the following special features. Para mapangalagaan at maging balanse ang natural environment, naipasa ang batas na ito at nakapag-implement ng mga requirements at qualification sa mga sumusunod. It requires the designation of a buffer zone to stabilize protected areas whenever and wherever applicable. Kailangan dito na per individual sa assigned designation protected area ay appropriate at patuloy na ma-maintain. It recognizes essential rights and includes community interest with the concern of socio-economic development. Dapat may consideration at irespetong karapatan at mga hinaing ng mga tao regard sa situation ng environment at pag-unlad ng socio-economic. It requires the development of standard planning for site-specific management. Kailangan konkreto ang qualification ng mismong plano para ma-maintain ang mga iba't ibang unexpected situations. It establishes the Integrated Protected Areas Fund, a trust fund which will form the basis of sustained financing system, more or less para maisagawa ang mga projects, operation, at mga programs. Kailangan enough at accurate ang paggagamitan ng pera for ecosystem under the financing system from the IPAF, and it adopts decentralized system of protected area management. Kailangan mapangalagaan ng mga na-distributed na paraan ng sistema kahit saang lugar sa Pilipinas from DNR under the law of NIPAS. By 1999, 76 protected areas has been established under the NIPAS law. The regional offices of DNR, its Community Environment, Natural Resources Offices, Provincial Environment, Natural Resources Offices have also identified 25 old growth and mossy forests for inclusion in the IPAS. So in 1999, 76 protected areas ang na-accomplish ng NIPAS law. And the 4 regional offices by DNR recognize the 25 old growth and mossy forest by their management at syempre involve ang IPAS sa na-identified nila.
Plus 3 selection. Clusters are being selected continuously across the Philippine archipelago. The criteria for selection are based on morphology and resistance to pests and diseases, but there have been few attempts to propagate the selected trees in nurseries. In 1991, plus trees from 23 species in 8 administrative regions of the country were selected. 38 seed production areas have been identified and documented. The Forest Management Bureau has also identified 61 seed production areas for 19 tree species. Plans to improve the genetic composition of this PA are under development. Although seed is being collected from selected plus trees and SPAs, a system to monitor the transfer of germplasm and its performance after planting is not yet in place. Tulad nga dun sa binasa natin, ang plus 3 selection, ito ay may selected na puno na dito itatanim ang seed para lalo ma-improve yung genes o cells sa isang puno, na ito naman tinatawag na plus trees. At ang puno na pipiliin dapat walang peste at disease na sisira sa puno at sa seed. Kasi noong 1991, merong 23 species na puno na napiling gawin sa plus trees. Ang Forest Management Bureau ay nagkaroon ng seed production sa 19 na puno. Dito ay nagkaroon din ng breeding sa mga halaman.
Good day everyone, I'm Laika Arapok. I'll be discussing the lesson 4, which is about water sanitation and conservation.
Ex situ conservation. There have been several ex situ conservation projects and programs in the Philippines. Seed orchards of various species have been established in several parts of the country under both private and government initiatives. In most cases, however, these orchards have been abandoned because of a lack of funds or trained personnel. Financial and technical needs for rehabilitating these orchards are being studied. There have been several ex situ conservation projects and programs in the Philippines. Seed orchards of various species have been established in several parts of the country under both private and government initiatives. In most cases, however, these orchards have been abandoned because of a lack of funds or trained personnel. Financial and technical needs for rehabilitating these orchards are being studied. A variety of commercially important indigenous and endemic species, as well as for those reported to be rare, threatened or endangered, require especially attention for ex situ and in situ conservation. A forest biotechnology program at the College of Forestry and Natural Resources of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, focus on tissue culture of selected industrial plantation species. Merong proyekto at programa ng ex situ conservation sa Pilipinas, at ang seed orchards meron na sa iba't ibang bansa dahil sa tulong ng gobyerno. Pero naabandon na ang orchards dahil sa kakulangan ng pondo at tauhan. Kaya kailangan ng financial and technical needs para sa pagsasagawa ng orchards. Kasi ang ex situ conservation kasi, ito yung pinapangalagaan o pinoprotekta ng mga endangered species. Pati na rin ang species ng hayop at halaman kasama na din ang kanilang tahanan. Dito ay ang mga bihirang halaman o mga endangered na, kaya kailangan na magkaroon ng masigit na atensyon na ang ex situ conservation. Kaya ang gubat sa College of Forestry and Natural Resources of the University of Philippines Los Baños ay nagpo-focus sa tissue culture na selected na plant species. Dito sa Institutional Framework for Conservation of Forest Genetic Resources, ay ang gobyerno ay merong programa ng tree breeding and propagation na ito ay pinapangunahan ng DNR na may suporta mula sa Forest Management Bureau and ERDB. Ang pinaka-main focus ng DNR ay pangalagaan ng forest resources sa ating bansa, at may mga schools at university naman na sinusuportahan ng DNR sa research at training, tulad ng school ng Don Mariano Marcos State University, the Central Luzon University, the Central Mindanao University, at ang Visayas State College of Agriculture, at ang higit sa lahat, ang main contributor ay ang UPLB or University of the Philippines Los Baños. Ang next ay may Philippine Constitution tayo kung saan pinoprotektahan at inalaga ng natural resources. Isa na dyan ang sinusuportahan at pinoprotektahan ng Estado ang karapatan ng mga Pilipino para mapangalagaan at ingatan ang kapaligiran. Ang pangalawa naman po ay pinagmamay-ari ng Estado ang lahat ng natural resources except sa agricultural lands. Ang pangatlo, nasa pamamahala ng Estado ang mga natural resources kung saan nagsasagawa sila ng mga activities o programa na makakatulong na mas mapaganda ito sa tulong ng mga mamamayan. At sa panghuli naman po, sa Section 5, pinoprotektahan ng Estado ng ating mga katutubo na kanilang lupain para mapanatili ang ekonomiya at ang kultura nila. National Priorities in Conservation, coordination of all government agency and non-governmental organization involved in tree breeding and propagation. The mandate of DENR will include the proper management of the country's forest genetic resources. Yun nga, ang government at non-government organization ay kasama sa pagsasagawa ng tree breeding at pagpaparami. At ang sunod naman po ay strengthening of government units directly involved in forest management in line with sustained implementation of long-term tree improvement research and development programs. Ito ay pinapanatili ng gobyerno ng pangangalaga ng mga forest at ang mga long-term tree improvement research at ang mga development program tulad sa probinsya ng pagpaparami ng tanim. Ang next po ay increasing the production of genetically superior seed and planting stock by establishing and maintaining additional improved seed production areas. Dito ay sinasabi lang na pagpaparami ng produce ng seed at pagtatanim ng mga halaman. Pang-apat ay continue research and development of superior forest plantations. Possible areas for research include site-specific adaptability testing, increasing seed production by orchards, development of propagation techniques, pollination, hybridization, and recurrent selection techniques. Sinasabi dito ay pinagpapatuloy ang pag-aaral at pag-develop ng mga taniman para lalo pa maparami ang mga seed production sa pamamagitan ng mga orchards at pag-develop ng mga techniques sa mga pagpaparami at pag-hybrid. At ang panghuli naman po ay conservation of important germplasm produced by current research activities in selection and hybridization. Sinasabi dito na pinaka-importanting paraan ay ang pangangalaga sa pagtatanim at pagsasagawa ng seed selection.
Good day everyone, I'm Laika Arapok. I'll be discussing the lesson 4, which is about water sanitation and conservation. As early as 1996, monitoring of the country's rivers showed that only 51% of the classified rivers still met the standards for their beneficial use. The rest were already populated from domestic, industrial, and agricultural sources. Most studies tell that domestic wastewater is the principal cause of organic pollution with 48% of our water bodies. Yet, only 3% of investments in water supply and sanitation were going to sanitation and treatment. Yung organic pollution nag-occur siya when large quantities of organic compounds which act as substrates for microorganisms released into water courses. Did you know na ang Maynila po ang second to the lowest sewer connection among major cities in Asia and less than 7% compared to 20% for Kathmandu, Nepal, and 30% for Dhaka and Bangladesh. This is according sa recent report ng World Bank. Kaya 31% ng mga sakit sa bansa ay attributed to polluted water. Ito yung example ng mga disease na ito ay diarrhea, schistosomiasis, dengue fever, infection by intestinal worms, malaria, and trachoma. Nag-implement na ang ating gobyerno ng isang act to surely assess clean water for all Filipinos. Ito yung Clean Water Act. What is Clean Water Act? The Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004, Republic Act number 9275, aims to protect the country's water bodies from land-based sources. Ito yung mga industries and commercial establishments, agriculture and community/households activities. It provides for a comprehensive and integrated strategy to prevent and minimize pollution through a multi-sectoral and participatory approach involving all the stakeholders. So basically, this act was established to protect, preserve, and revive water quality of the country's sources. Importante ang Clean Water Act dahil nagkakaroon tayo ng low sewerage coverage, degradation of water quality from domestic waste, spread of waterborne disease, and decline in fish production. Next is, let's discuss the highlights of this Clean Water Act. How will water quality be managed? Ima-manage ito based on watershed, river basin, or water resources region. Watershed management nag-i-aim na makonserve ang soil, plant, and water resource of a catchment while benefiting humanity. Lahat ng environment, social, and economic concern ay pinagsama-sama in an integrated manner. Mga ilan sa watershed mayroon tayo dito sa Pinas ay Sibalom River Watershed, Tagibo River Watershed, Labangan Watershed, Padada Watershed, at marami pang iba. Next naman, ang river basin ay it is a portion of land drained by a river and its tributaries. Importante ito dahil as water flows over the ground and along rivers, it can pick up ng mga nutrients, sediments, and pollutants. Dito sa Pilipinas, meron tayong 18 major river basins and 3 principal river basins, and last, water resources region. This is an important issue from several angles, such as development water bodies for future, protection of available water bodies from pollution and over-exploitation, and to prevent disputes. It is also managed by areas with similar hydrogeological, meteorological, or geographic bodies are to be designed by the DENR in coordination with the National Water Resources Board or NWRB, who will manage these areas. Management will be localized. Ang mga multi-sectoral governing boards will be established to manage water equality issues within their jurisdiction. Sila yung mga private sectors individual from different locality. Next, who are the members of the governing boards? Governing boards shall be composed of representatives of mayors and governors as well as local government units, representative of relevant national government agencies, duly registered non-government organizations, the conserved water utility sector, and the business sector. Bali sila yung maunguna to implement the Clean Water Act. Next is, what are the functions of the governing boards? Bali sila yung maunguna, and they will formulate strategies to coordinate policies necessary for the effectiveness of the implementation of this act. They will create multi-sectoral group na mag-establish and magsasagawa ng effectiveness of water quality, surveillance, and monitoring. How will discharges of wastewater be controlled? Lahat ng mga may-ari or operators ng mga wastewater facilities ay required na kumuha ng permit to discharge from the DENR or the Laguna Lake Development Authority. Existing industries without any permit are given 12 months from the effectivity of the Implementing Rules and Regulation or IRR promulgated pursuant to this act to secure a permit to discharge. Next is, how will domestic wastewater be addressed? The Department of Public Works and Highways or DPWH, with the coordination of the local government units, sila ay maghahanda ng isang national program sa sewage and septage management not later from 12 months of activity of this act. While ang LGU naman, ang task nila ay is to provide land including road right for the way for the construction of sewage or septage treatment facilities. Ang Department of Health naman ay magpo-formulate ng mga guidelines and standards for the collection, treatment, and disposal of sewage as well as the guidelines for the establishments and operation of centralized sewage treatment system. How will the discharge of water be discouraged? Anyone discharging wastewater into a water body will have to pay a wastewater charge. This economic instrument, which will be developed in consultation with all concerned stakeholders, is expected to encourage investments in cleaner production and pollution control technologies to reduce the amount of pollutants generated and discharged. Next, what safeguards are provided for? All possible discharges are required to put up an Environmental Guarantee Fund or EGF as part of their environmental management plan. The EGF will finance the conservation of watersheds and squatters, and the needs of emergency response, cleanup rehabilitation is needed. We know naman na ang Philippines ay blessed sa mga water resources which have played a significant role in its development. Sa tulong ng Clean Water Act or CWA ay mapapanatili nating maayos or mamimaintain natin yung water supply na safe na gamitin ng mga Pilipino. It provides sanctions for those who will pollute the water. But in order for this act to be successful ay hindi lang nakadepende sa kung paano ito in-implement ng gobyerno, but also sa will na rin nating mga tao na sundin yung pag-implement nila para mapanatili nating ligtas at magamit natin ng ligtas ang ating mga resources na dapat hindi natin naabusuduhin at sisirain ang paggamit nito. Next, what are the prohibited acts under RA 9275? Discharging or depositing any water pollutant to the water body or such will impede natural flow in the water body. Ito yung mga pagtatapon ng mga bagay, mostly plastic sa ilog, river, or sapa. Ito ay ipinagbabawal dahil maaari itong makabara ng daloy ng tubig at makakapag-cause ng floods. 2. Discharging, injecting, or allowing to seep into soil or subsoil or any substance in any form that could pollute groundwater. Next, operating facilities that discharge regulated water pollutants without the required permits. 4. Disposal of potentially infectious medical waste into sea by vessels. Para maiwasan na pagtapon ng medical waste na delikado sa ating dalampasigan, ay magiging ligtas lang ito kung dadaan muna sa sterilization process. Kasi ang mga medical waste like gauze or needles ay hindi nare-recycle, kaya kailangan masanitize to become non-hazardous bago pwede nang i-dispose. 5. Unauthorized transports or dumping into waters of sewage sludge or solid waste. This is prohibited dahil maaaring makapagbara ang mga solid waste na ating tinatapon sa ating mga sewage water. 6. Transport, dumping, or discharge of prohibited chemical substances or pollutants listed under toxic, chemical, hazardous, and nuclear. Example ng prohibited chemicals ay ethylene oxide, hydrosome, selenium, phenic acid, benzene, chloroform, at marami pang iba. 7. Waste Control Act, Republic Act Number 6969. This act provides for the regulation upon chemical substances that may pose threat to public health and the environment through import, manufacture, sale, use, distribution, and disposal, as well as the regulation of all hazardous waste. 8. Discharging regulated water pollutants without the valid required discharge permit pursuant to this act. Yung pollution, ito yung mga dredge spoil, mga solid waste, mga basura sa kanal, chemical, logical waste, at marami pang iba. 9. Non-compliance of the LGU with the Water Quality Framework and Management Area Network. 10. Refusal to allow entry, inspection, and monitoring as well as access to reports and records by the DENR in accordance with this act. Yung mga owners or operators, kapag merong expansion ang DENR, dapat inaalaw lang nila ito, and kung hihingi man sila ng records and reports, dapat ay ibigay din nila. Refusal or failure to submit reports or designated pollution control officers whenever required by the DENR in accordance with this act. 12. Directly using booster pumps in the distribution system or tampering with the water supply in which a way to after impaired the water quality. 13. Operate facilities that discharge or allow to sip willfully or through grave negligence prohibited chemicals, substances, or pollutant listed under RA number 6969 into water bodies. And last, undertake activities or development and expansion of projects or operating wastewater treatment sewerage facilities in violation of PD 1585 and its IRR. What are the fines and penalties imposed on polluters? The following are among the fines and penalties for violators of this act and its IRR. Upon the recommendation of the Pollution Adjudication Board or PAB, anyone who commits prohibited acts such as discharging untreated wastewater into any water body will be fined for every day of violation. The amount of not less than 10,000 pesos but not more than 200,000 pesos. Failure to undertake cleanup operations willfully shall be punished by imprisonment of not less than 2 years and not more than 4 years. This also includes a fine of not less than 50,000 and not more than 100,000 pesos per day of violation. Failure or refusal to clean up which results in serious injury or loss of life or lead to irreversible water contamination or of surface, ground, coastal, and marine water shall be punished with imprisonment of not less than 6 years in 1 day and not more than 12 years and a fine of 500 pesos for each day the contamination of emission continues. In cases of gross violation, a fine of not less than 500 pesos but not more than 3 million for each day of violation. Criminal charges may also be filed. Who should implement the Clean Water Act? The DENR is the primary government agency responsible for the implementation and enforcement of this act, with the support of other government organizations, local government units, non-government organizations, and the private sector. Towards this end, the DENR will review and set affluent standards, review and enforce water quality guidelines, classify groundwater sources, and prepare a national groundwater vulnerability map, classify or reclassify water bodies, establish internationally accepted procedures for sampling and analysis, prepare an integrated water quality management framework, and subsequently prepare 10-year management plans for each water management areas. The roles of other key government agencies are the Philippine Coast Guard. They should enforce water quality standards in marine waters, specifically from offshore sources. Next, the Department of Public Works and Highways, through its attached agencies, shall provide sewage and sanitation facilities and the efficient and safe collection, treatment, and disposal of sewage within their area of jurisdiction. Next, the Department of Agriculture. They shall formulate guidelines for the reuse of wastewater for irrigation and other agricultural uses and for the prevention, control, and abatement of pollution from agricultural and aquaculture activities. Next, the Department of Health. They shall set, revise, and enforce drinking water quality standards. The Department of Science and Technology. They shall evaluate, verify, develop, and disseminate pollution prevention and cleaner production technologies. Ang Department of Education, Commission on Higher Education, Department of Interior and Local Department, and the Philippine Information Agency. These departments, they shall prepare and implement a comprehensive and continuing public education and information program. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Hello guys, so I'm going to discuss to you the lesson 5, which is the role of the youth in environmental protection and management. The world is currently facing a crisis in the environment, such as depletion of resources, biodiversity loss, and long-lived radioactive waste. Young people can play a vital role in protecting and improving the environment as they constitute a large part of the world's population. So yun, sabi na nga na currently we are facing crisis in our environment, katulad nung sa mga bundok na nakakalbo dahil sa illegal logging. Tapos yung mga biodiversity loss, which is hindi lang tayo naapektuhan, pati na rin yung mga naninirahang animals doon. At saka yung mga radioactive na alam natin na delikado kapag naipon, or syempre mag-iinit yun ng pagsabog. So, as a youth, meron tayong gampanin, or malaki yung gampanin natin sa pag-improve at pag-protect ng environment natin. So, ito. They can make their homes, schools, and youth organization more environmentally friendly by adopting environmentally friendly practices. So, sa bahay, sa schools natin, tsaka sa mga organization, pwede natin i-adapt yung environmental friendly practices, which are recycling of different materials, katulad ng plastic, or mga waste. Then, preserving resources, yun na nga, dapat hindi tayo nagsasayang ng tubig or electricity kapag di naman natin ginagamit. Engaging youth in environmental protection not only creates direct impact on changing their behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes, but they can positively influence their parents, relatives, and families. So, kapag hindi lang sa environment natin nakakatulong ito, nakakatulong din ito sa pag-change ng ating paniniwala, sa behaviors natin, attitudes, at pwede rin nating ma-influensyan yung parents natin, relatives, families, and friends sa pag-protect at pag-protect ng environment. Youth are the backbone of the nation. They can change the future of the society with their well-being and courageous behavior. So ayun, sa sinabi ko kanina, malaki yung role natin sa society sa pag-improve at pag-protect ng environment. Executive Order 579, a law encouraging the formulation and implementation of Green Philippines program through the National Service Training Program. Specified under Section 1 of the said Executive Order that the National Service Program, or NSTP, shall endeavor to build a new quality of life that will keep the national young and beautiful, and in order to ensure its realization, all students under NSTP, Reserve Officers Training Corps, or ROTC, Literacy Training Service, or LTS, and Civic Welfare Training Service, or CWTS, shall be involved in Green Philippines activities, which include, among others, taking back our forests and replenishing fallen trees with new protected forests, beautifying our barangays and cities, building more urban parks and recreation areas, purifying our water, and cleaning up industrial sites. So, ayun, makakatulong yung sa NSTP natin dahil about sa environment to eh. So, ayun, sa pagpapa-improve and pag-protect, pag-beautify, hindi lang sa environment pati sa paligid natin.
Sinigang mix, paminta, luya, bawang sibuyas, kamatis, suka, alright. Hey, 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 alright. Chilpitatos, bangus, tilapia, chip-chip, may bawang.